All right, guys, welcome to the Hunter's Quest podcast. I'm here today with my partner for Spring Bear and my good buddy, Luke DUSENBURY. And we wanted to do a podcast to kind of give you an in-depth recap of the Spring Bear hunt. It was probably, not that there wasn't some physical tough parts, but it was mentally probably the toughest hunt I've ever done. It was hard to keep going and not want to quit. It was one of those hunts where just like lots of stuff went wrong.
It was a doozy, to put it lightly.
Yeah. And we'll get into all that stuff in detail, but so we got back to Luke's house yesterday, and I've been kind of doing the gear shuffle to kind of, because I got to go leave on a flight today back home. And we were both just like mentally fried yesterday, and so we decided to wait until today. I'm glad we did.
Yeah, I think we could have, but I think, I was definitely a little foggy yesterday. I was like, pretty spent.
Yeah, we decided to kind of pack up yesterday and do the podcast today when we could have some coffee and kind of have some time to process. Because I guess I already kind of knew this, but I guess a lot of guys, they say like, oh, I can really clear my head and think on the mountain and stuff like that. Not me. I am focused on hunting. I process after. Like, I don't know. So I really like to get some like alone time. Like yesterday I sat outside in Luke's yard, like watched the sunset for probably like an hour and a half, just thinking about the hunt and kind of digesting, absorbing, figuring out like what we did right, what we did wrong, where we could have done stuff different. And because that's really part of the process, which is amazing, and something I've found that I've really enjoyed of the process is I'm still so new. This is my first ever attempt at a DIY spring bear hunt out here. And I've done one spring bear hunt before, but I was, the other guys were picking the spots. I was kind of along for the ride. This was, I e-scouted this, I planned it, so this is the first time. And it's just really cool to be able to break down, like I said, where I went wrong, maybe some things that we did right, what I would do different next time. And that's just such a fun and cool part of the process, like, because it's frustrating when you look back and think of the mistakes you made, but then it just gives you that encouragement of like, oh, I really want to do it again, and I want to like improve and get better, and that's just part of the whole journey, and it's awesome.
No, absolutely. Yeah, and to kind of jump the gun, I would say, yesterday, Hunter, when we were, got back, we were both exhausted, and, just thinking about the whole hunt and stuff, Hunter was like, I want you to take some time, but I want you to think of 4 takeaways for this hunt. And to kind of, I guess, jump the gun, because we're going to go through them all. My fourth one, I was having a hard time thinking of it this morning, but my fourth one is just observing Hunter, like take the time yesterday to like really reflect, because I feel like that's something I do a little bit of sometimes on the mountain, sometimes after, but I would say that's something I'm going to try and do more of, is just to really reflect on a hunt instead of just like going from like one hunt to like the next job, or one hunt to like coming home and like tackling projects around the house or whatever it is. Like, we're all busy, but just like purposefully taking time to reflect, because sometimes like I don't know if it's just my life the past few years, or maybe in a little bit ADD or something, like it's hard for me to like sit and reflect, especially on something like this hunt where there are some things that like didn't go our way, and that's like sometimes like painful to like reflect on. So that's like something I'm definitely going to take away from this hunt, this time, and just learning some stuff from Hunter is just like the importance of like reflection.
I know what you mean, because it can be like tough when like we said, a hunt doesn't go your way. Like, you kind of like don't always want to think about it, but like if you just really like, I was just literally last night just like going chronologically through the hunt every step of the way and analyzing like, okay, did we do the right thing here? What could we have done different? Like what? So, and there was some stuff we did right, and there's some stuff we did wrong, but that's all just part of the process. And I don't know. It's tough for you too, because guys, Luke is like literally jumping on a plane, today or tomorrow?
Tomorrow.
for, to go on a crazy fishing tournament job. So, I might have a little bit more of a luxury of reflecting than you, but you got to do it. You got to break it down. And I try to do kind of like an after action report or even just in my head because I'm still learning so much. And,
it's really important. And I don't know if it's because like I don't know if it's because maybe it's harder for men or what, just how we're wired, but I feel like it's harder to reflect, or to purposefully make time to reflect.
Yeah.
At least I feel like that in my own life, like whether it's like about hunting or like even like work stuff or like goals or, I don't know. It's just harder to make time sometimes because it's like, I got to like think about emotions or I got to think about, something I did wrong, which isn't fun to think about.
Yeah. I feel like you learn more almost on hunts when you don't punch a tag.
Yeah.
Like, so it's almost like, for me, is like, okay, and spoiler alert, we did not kill a bear. But I feel like it's almost like, for me, it's like, okay, I didn't kill. So like, I have to find some value in this. And for me, that value is really figuring out what I can learn from it. So that's kind of, so actually, let me grab my phone. It's got my notes on there. So I guess let's start kind of from the top. We kind of go chronologically. I'm just pulling up my notes here from what I was thinking about yesterday, but okay. So just to give some backstory to the hunt. So like I said, this is the first time I had kind of planned a DIY bear hunt. Like most hunts, I went in pretty optimistic. Luke's schedule was such that we went in mid-May. I typically, like I said, in my limited experience, I like to hunt a little earlier, but it was just the way it worked out this time. And I was going to say something else. I forgot what it was. But yeah, so, I was going to mention just the oddness of this year's weather that we had coming into it. So most of you guys probably already know, but all across the West was just like insane snowfall and cold temperature year. And then here in Idaho, it went from like tons of snow to like summer, right? Like instantly.
Yeah, I've heard, I mean, I don't know for sure, but I've heard it's like one of the warmest warm-up periods of like a spring that they've ever had.
Yeah.
So couple that with like, in some areas of Idaho, like the most snow we've had in 100 years, plus the warmest spring.
Yeah.
It's like, it just created a lot of, not to make excuses, but it just created, there's a lot more challenges this year that I think were unique to this season and the dates we were able to go.
Yeah.
But, it was, that's just part of the hunt. That's actually like another, like one of my reflections too, is just like, knowing the weather and, the warm up and, the snowfall and not just like looking at the weather of like the hunt of like, oh yeah, like the weather looks good the next like week, it's like, no, like trying to like get out and scout before, which I wasn't able to do, unfortunately. Yeah. And just kind of know where that snow line's at on the north faces and the south faces and just to kind of better prepare yourself.
Yeah. And just like, I'm a non-resident and we're trying to coordinate schedules. Luke's a busy dude. So, in the perfect situation, if you live near where you're hunting, you can kind of judge like, okay, where's the snow line? I can go to this spot. We didn't really have that luxury. We kind of had to pick a date and kind of go for it. And so kind of starting from the e-scouting process, which I got to say, I think that's one thing I did pretty well, except for I didn't factor in the conditions probably. The spot I found, and the reason I say I think I did well is because not only was our first spot where I e-scouted the only place we saw any bears, but also another friend of mine who's a much better bear hunter than me said that he actually had started off his season hunting in the same general area. So that kind of confirmed like, okay, I'm not completely off. But I took what I learned from my last bear hunt, the type of terrain, the basic elevation and stuff like that, and tried to find other areas that looked similar in terms of like steep, nasty stuff, rocks, plenty of water, and obviously looking for that green vegetation. But the first spot we went into, see, I thought we would be okay because it was down about 4,000, 4,500 in the elevation. I thought because of the snow, I sort of assumed that the snow line melt would go more uniformly. So because there's more snow, in my mind, I'm thinking, okay, we can hunt lower elevations later. But that's not really how it went down. We were talking about this last night. It warmed up so fast that stuff in that 4,000 range was like completely thawed, like almost dry and hot. But then like when you get to a certain point, it's like winter.
Oh yeah, like full on winter. And we did a lot of video on this hunt, and you can definitely see in some of the clips just some of the contrast of, one hillside looks like midwinter, beyond the wall kind of stuff. And then the next hillside, you just pan the camera over and it's like, oh, it's like summer.
Yeah.
And then you go over there and it's like 77, 80 degrees and you're in a t-shirt.
Yeah.
Hip zips are all the way open and you're just like dying.
Yeah.
And
we'll get into it later, but there were other spots where we were, no exaggeration, I went over my knee in snow many times. And it was like knee deep snow we were walking through, which is, it's that really annoying snow where like you step on it and then for like 1 second it supports you, then you just fall through to your knee.
Yeah. And you're doing little single leg pistol squats with your trekking poles, like just trying to get through it to the next dry patch. So
anyway, so we got into our first spot. We had a few challenges getting in, not major, just, because the water was high. Mm-hmm. Nothing major. We made it in a couple miles in there and found a really cool camp spot. How much was that climb up to it?
I think it was like 600 feet up from the river or creek. And too, like with how much snow we had mixed with the high temperatures, like every creek we came across was just like raging.
Loaded, yeah.
Just and like the first spot we went into, the trail was washed out in 2 different areas and we had to kind of rock climb and scamper around. I ended up just going through the river because I was like, I've got like 65 pounds on my back and I just didn't feel like rock climbing.
Yeah, and I decided to rock climb it for some reason,
so.
Which you'll see. And by the way, you can see this whole hunt as it goes down with some of our commentary in an episode I'm going to work on for the show and Sportsman channel, which is going to launch in June, but this episode will come out kind of down the road. But anyway, so we get in there. It wasn't too bad of a climb up to our camping spot. We found this nice little like bench up there, but you add in, like I said, 65-pound pack, and then we had to carry. Oh my gosh, I know I personally was carrying 12 liters of water plus my full packing, like 5 days of food. You probably had 10 liters of water?
I think I had 10, yeah.
So that was pretty brutal.
About 20 pounds of water, give or take.
Close to 100 pounds, and it was, like very steep. At one point I was like on my all fours crawling up this thing.
Yeah, but once we got up there, it was like we were in a state park.
Yeah.
It was just like perfectly manicured grass.
Flat.
Yeah, smelled a little elky. There's a lot of elk sign.
Yeah, and like really good glassing spots.
Yeah, it was very beautiful.
Very good spot. Really good green vegetation. The problem was at that elevation, there was no snow line. It was about, like I said, 4,500-ish. And I always, again, I'm still learning, but from a lot of my mentors, what I hear a lot is it's very snow line dependent. The bears really like kind of hanging out close to that snow line. I think that's because of the new green shoots of vegetation, and then also it allows them to be up higher and have water, because wherever there's a big thing of snow, there's usually like a little runoff coming off it if there's not a spring or something up there. Mm-hmm. So I don't know, what'd you think when we got up to that spot?
Oh, I thought it was gorgeous.
Yeah.
And I was pretty shocked because going back to this whole snow level thing, I've been out of the state for a solid month straight. And when I left, for a month worth of jobs on the East Coast doing the fishing stuff, the snow was just like, we still had snow in my house.
Yeah.
And we're at 5,000 feet here. And so I was like, oh man, like this is going to be a crazy spring bear season. I was just like, are we even going to be able to get anywhere? And then I come home from that, on the same flight actually as Hunter getting here. And I was just like amazed how green everything was. I'm like, oh, this is like awesome. It's like summer. And then I just kind of assumed that the spot we were going to would still be pretty wintry.
Yeah.
But we got there and it was like, dude, this is like July.
Yeah.
It's just gorgeous and
not a trace of snow anywhere.
Yeah. I mean, you could see snow at the very tip top, the mountains, like as high as we could see. And I was just like, dang, like, that's not what I expected at all.
Yeah.
It was just kind of the cards we were both dealt.
Yeah.
It just not knowing where that snow line was heading into that spot.
Yeah. And that's where I had wrongly assumed that because there was more snow this year, we could get away with a lower elevation later in the year. But like I said, it just didn't melt off uniformly like that. It's like it all melted in some lower areas, and then the higher areas like really held on to it. Mm-hmm. So anyway, we got in there. We were pretty stoked just because the spot was great. And I do think I will probably go back there. If I do this hunt again next year, I will go back to the same spot 3 to 4 weeks earlier. I think it would be a great spot. But so we had some, we got in there, got set up, and then we glassed that for a day and a half. Luke, you saw something.
Yes. Yeah, I want to say it was around 1 o'clock on that second day. I glassed up what I thought was like a little stump, but then I just kept the spotter on it, kept looking at it. And then I just saw like it moved just a little bit. I was like, no way. And it was just this little black bear cub.
Yeah.
And he was just like kind of romping around the grass. And he was like way up at like the top of the mountain. Like from where we were at, I was looking just like straight up across the creek at the top. Kind of like on a northeast facing slope. And he was just, this little cub was just coming out of the timber. And I just kept watching him. Got Hunter to come over here and take a look. And then the mom popped out, the sow. And we watched him for, solid hour. Just kind of like walk up there. The cub was just kind of all over the place. The mom was just eating and feeding, and going uphill, possibly into the next drainage. We're not sure. But yeah, we watched them for a while. We're like, okay, like there's a bear here.
Yeah.
Like that's awesome. Because we hiked in the first day, and then this was our second day in there, but first full day of being in there glassing from,
And we were seeing elk too, and
yeah, we were seeing a lot of game, a lot of sign of life. It just seemed like a really good spot.
Yeah.
Which kudos to Hunter for finding that.
Yeah, and so I think the easiest way to do this conversation would be kind of like just recap the hunt chronologically, and then we can kind of hit on the takeaways probably. But we can mention them. But like looking back on the hunt now, like this whole time we've both just been like kicking ourselves. Like we should have stayed at least another day in that spot. And we'll get into it more later, but we should have stayed longer. We should have given that a little more time. That was kind of one major mistake, was just getting a little jumpy. But I recorded an episode with Brian Call of the TV show. It's coming out soon. And he's kind of one of my mentors. And one thing that kept ringing in my head is he says in that episode, if you spend a day and a half in an area and you don't see any bears, it's probably because there aren't any bears there. And but I still think just we should have given it a little more time. But that kept ringing in my head for some reason. And we kind of from the beginning had this plan laid out of we'll try my spot, and if it's not really happening, we'll go to this other spot that Luke went to last year and saw some bears. And we knew some other guys that had been in the general area and seen good bears. So, and again, I went into this hunt a little bit probably overly optimistic about the amount of bears we should be seeing. So after, a full day and a half of glassing, we only saw that one sow and cub. We kind of decided, hey, we're too low, it's too hot, we're nowhere near the snow line, which was pretty logical thinking. I still wish we'd given it a little more time, but it was logical why we left. I think that could have been accurate. But anyway, we decided, let's go check out Luke's other spot where we knew there'd be bears. Now, Luke mentioned that last time he went in there, they were walking through what? You said thigh deep water?
Yeah, it was about mid-thigh deep of water crossing this creek.
Yeah.
Which last year, I went around the same time, generally speaking. And it wasn't, too sketchy. Like, we just kind of went for it. And I just assumed it would probably be kind of the similar situation.
Yeah.
Similar water level, similar risk factor. But
right. Which I knew when he said that, like, when you have those like gut, just like instant reactions in your gut. As soon as you said that, my instant gut reaction was, if they were going through like waist, if this is going to be a problem. But I just kind of, and this is something that one of my takeaways is like, sometimes it's hard, but you got to listen to that little voice, because that little voice was like, that's not going to work. But I was like, yeah, we'll be fine because we had a pack raft, and we'll get to that later. But I should have listened to that little voice because I knew if they're going through thigh deep snow last year, I just knew because of the amount of snow, how everything was high and just raging, like this was going to be a problem. But I, for some reason, ignored the little voice and we decided to go check out Luke's spot. So, but before we did that, we kind of, we cruised around the unit we were in and did some, I wouldn't even call it road hunting. I would just call it like scouting. Like we were using the road system to cover a lot of ground and glassing and taking little hikes into certain areas, but mainly glassing just wide areas just to see if we could kind of get a feel for, you know, what elevation bears might be at or if there even were any bears. And we covered quite a bit of ground and did not see any bear sign, no bears, no tracks, no droppings, nothing.
Yeah, I mean, we drove pretty high up too because we wanted to like see where the snow line was at, you know, in this other part of the unit, and just to see like, you know, where's like based on like kind of our limited knowledge, like where's some good habitat that we like have seen bears in this particular unit, and just trying to find, you know, like basically like new locations and just doing like location scouting.
Yep.
And we were seeing like a lot of animals, like we saw a lot of elk, saw a lot of deer, saw a fox. You know, we were seeing a lot of signs of life. But it was just like trying to find the bear.
Right.
You know, it's just funny because a lot of times you go on a hunt for an elk and all you see are deer. You go on a hunt for a deer, all you see are elk. It's like, it's just the nature of sometimes hunting. But so we did that for about a day and unfortunately just didn't turn anything up. So.
Yeah. So we decided, all right, let's get out of here. That was kind of our confirmation. And we went to Luke's spot, which is kind of different part of the state. I mean, 3 or 4 hour drive.
Oh, for sure.
And so the next day, we got to the trailhead, pretty good time of day, pretty early, and we knew we were going to do these creek crossings, so we brought the pack raft. And this is only the second time I've ever been in a pack raft, by the way. But I figured, you know, I did it once, I can handle this. And so we go. It's about what, a mile to the first crossing. And mind you, like there's not just one creek crossing. We have to do 3 creek crossings just to get into Luke's spot. And so we get there and I see the water and I'm like, ooh, that's smooth. I mean, it was moving like 20, 25 miles an hour probably.
I don't know. It was cooking.
It was cooking.
Yeah, it was, I was definitely a little scared just looking at it. But at the same time, it's not like just that the water's moving fast. It's a fast-moving creek, almost a borderline river at this point. But the way the banks of the river are, it's not like there's just rocks or sand, or it's like open. It's like thick willows, like almost like moose country.
Yes.
And then where it's not thick willows and not fast-moving, it's like marshy, swampy, boggy. And so it was just kind of a recipe for disaster with how much runoff we had this year.
Yeah, like the trail goes through and like, so the other side of the creek or whatever is probably what, like 10 feet wide of like a trail, and either side is just completely thick, just like almost impassable willows.
Yeah, 15-foot tall willows.
Yeah. And so you basically have to like hit right in this spot.
Yeah. And to back up a little bit, when we got to the trailhead for this spot, there was no one in it. And we were both like, sick, we're the only ones here. Now it makes complete sense.
Yeah. No one at the trailhead. So, and I think later we saw some people and they're like, oh, you guys are insane.
Yeah. We saw some hikers that came up, but yeah.
So I saw it. I was a little scared, but I was like, yeah, we can do this. Which, you know, that just chalked it up to my lack of experience dealing with these kind of conditions, because probably a more experienced person would have just been like, nah, this isn't going to happen. So anyway, blew up the pack raft, figured let's just do it, man. This is, you know, let's just do it. So blew up the pack raft, get in, and I was focusing a lot on just keeping the nose of my raft upstream, and I just drastically underestimated the speed of this current, and I just don't have, like, I have extremely small amount of experience on a pack raft, so it's just basically didn't know what I was doing, and so I just went out way too slow into this thing, and as soon as I hit that, like, current, whoosh, just like flushes me like down the toilet.
Oh yeah, and I'm just filming because Hunter's like, "Do you want to go first?" And I was like, I've never been on a pack raft at all. I've like done like some kayaking, some rafting, some canoeing. This is definitely like next level. And I was like, I think I want to watch.
Yeah, I was like, would you be more comfortable if I went first and you watched? And you're like,
yeah, because I know you did it last year, and I was like, I mean, he probably has like some, he obviously has done it more than me because I've done it 0
Just
times. So I'm like, I want to watch him do it first. And yeah, we had a little piece of paracord tied to my side of the shore, so that if something bad happened, I could pull him back across.
Right, and we had one raft, so we had to tie the raft so that theoretically I would cross, get myself over, he would pull the raft back, and then cross himself. And I'm glad that I was the one who did it, not you. But anyway, I got completely flushed. So what happened was I'm just like, oh geez. So I got to get to the side. I know that if I don't get to the side and I hit, because the raft was tied off to a tree. If I don't, and I'm just in the middle of the creek and it hits the end of that line, it's just gonna just bury, and I'm just gonna be swamped. Mm-hmm. So I'm like, okay, gotta get to the other side. I knew I wasn't gonna hit the trail, so I just like get to the willows. I get to the willows, I just grab on. So I grab on, and then I look down, and there's water just rushing over the top of my raft. And so I was like, oh geez. So I fixed that, and then it was just, you can see it in the video. I was holding on, and I was in a position where the water was no longer coming over. So I was just kind of like, and the rope was kind of all tangled up. I was just kind of like, all right, calm down. I was holding on, so I was just able to like calm down, like stop panicking, and just kind of assess the situation. And I was trying to figure out if I could stay dry. I mean, it was extremely thick, like willows. Like I didn't know if I'd even be able to like physically get through it. My first thought was, you're not getting through that. But I was like, I have to. There's no other option. And I was trying to like see if I could not get my boots completely wet, but eventually I was like, I'm just gonna have to step out of this thing. So, and of course, I have like a 65-pound pack with like camera gear and all this expensive gear in the front. Try not to lose that. Try not to lose the paddle. So anyway, eventually I just step out and grab my pack and just basically like, just through sheer force of will, and just like push my way through these willows. Ended up breaking the microphone on my camera. But I got through, and what were you thinking at this point?
I was just like, oh my word, Hunter's gonna die. No, I was like,
you were scared though?
I was very worried because I was just like, oh man, he's got all of his gear, and he's like tucked up against those sharp willows. I'm like, I don't know, my mind just immediately went to like, the raft's gonna pop on a willow, or just some random branch. He's gonna get swept downstream. We're gonna lose his pack. I don't know how I'm gonna get to him. I don't know how we're gonna get out of here.
Yeah.
And I'm also thinking like, if he's able to get out of this situation, how am I gonna do this?
Yeah.
And then do that 2 more times just to get to where we're gonna hunt.
Yeah.
And then do that potentially with a bear or 2, 3 more times coming back.
Yeah.
With potentially more runoff because more snow is melting as the week goes by.
Yeah.
And so I don't know, my mind was just racing while I'm also just filming.
Yeah.
Trying to capture this instead of like, it was just a lot of emotions were going through my mind. But mostly it was just like, is Hunter like safe?
Yeah.
What can I do? I'm on the other side of the shore.
Yeah.
I feel helpless. Yeah.
And we have no life jackets, and the water is exceptionally cold. I mean, like 30 degree. Like,
oh yeah.
You put your foot in for like 1 second, it's like painful.
Ice bath.
Yeah. So, I mean, it's a dangerous situation, not gonna lie. And like normally after you kind of get out of one of those dangerous situations, you're like, oh, okay, cool, I did it. Like last year when I did that pack raft, after I was like, okay, nice. This was like, I got out and I was like still scared. And I was like thinking of like my kids back home and like, thinking like, we have to do this. I remember asking you like, are the other creeks as bad? And you're like, yeah, basically. And I was like, it hadn't hit me yet that this is like, we're not doing this, but like I was still scared. And so then, I see Luke over there. He gets the raft back. I'm standing there soaking wet from the waist down, like The bottom half of my pack was wet, and Luke kind of tries to cross on foot. He realizes that's not happening, and I could see him kind of like, and rightfully so. And finally I was just like, dude, like if you don't want to do it, do not do it. And I should have just known, like, we're not doing this. But I said that, and he's like, I don't know if it's worth it, man. And I was like, yep, 100% not worth it. Like, that was the right call. Like you said, it wasn't just like one crossing. It was multiple crossings, and that was very sketch. Mm-hmm. So we decided we're not doing this again. And then I'm like, okay.
And still looking back, we 100% made the right choice.
Oh, yeah. I mean, we shouldn't have even probably tried it.
Yeah. Yeah.
But anyway, so then I'm like, okay, well, I got to cross again. So this time, luckily, Luke had the line. So I was, rowing as fast as I could, and Luke was pulling me as hard as he could. And even with that, I barely made it to the trail, like crossing area. So we, after that, we were just kind of like glad that we survived that and packed up and headed back to the trailhead.
Yeah. Yeah, and we got back to the car and we were both just like, dude, what do we do now? Because that was like the only really, like, we had plan A, which was Hunter's spot, and then plan B, which is my spot. And then we were kind of like, dang, now what do we do?
Yeah.
And this is kind of like one of my main reflection points that I wrote down was just, it's really important to have a good plan A and plan B, but I think it's also just as important to like have some pretty solid plan C, plan D, plan E, even F.
Oh, yeah.
Like just having multiple backup plans in your pocket that you've already scouted or, have maybe checked out, or at the very least like e-scouted, because we had to kind of spend a lot of time that, third and fourth day, like going to some areas completely blind, just spending hours on maps looking, is this a good looking area? Texting some buddies, saying, hey, like, can we get a lifeline?
Yep.
Phone a friend. Yeah, phone a friend. So like, I don't know, that was one thing I think I'm going to take away from this hunt is just like trying to have a few more backup to the backup plans.
Yeah. Especially in spring, stuff is just so
Especially
unpredictable.
In spring. Yeah.
So anyway, that I lost some gear on that whole debacle. I broke a mic. I just realized right before we recorded this podcast, one of my lenses has water in it. A couple other things got wet.
You lost 2 batteries.
My Rode Go mic, one of them's fried.
Yeah.
I lost 2 batteries. I think they're fried. Wow. So
that
was
$1,500 in gear right there.
Thanks for reminding me.
I'm sorry.
I have protection plans on most of them, but yeah, I lost and that was the other thing. Like, I should have put my gear into the waterproof. These alpaca rafts, and testament to the raft. The raft did great. It was hitting on willows. It didn't pop. They do have a waterproof compartment that I should have used, but I was stupid and didn't. So the raft did great. It was just basically user error. But
I was shocked when you were pressed against those willows for like 10 minutes. I was like, dude, that raft is popped.
Oh yeah.
I was like, there's no way.
They're pretty tough.
Yeah, I was really impressed.
So alpaca rafts did great, but user error almost killed me. No, I don't think I would have died, but it would have been really bad if I had fallen out. But anyway, so we get out of there. And then, we were back to square one, whatever. And this is like the first of many times of being back to square one. But anyway, we get back to square one. We do, we send some texts out to some buddies. We pouring over OnX maps, just looking for something. We thought we might have found a decent looking spot. So we hiked in about another 2.5 miles on a spot, climbed another mountain. There was tons of snow. We were literally this is one of the first times we were walking through like knee deep snow in some spots. And we got up there and we're just like, this is not doing. So we busted out of there. And we were about an hour and a half from Luke's house. So that day was just that was the longest, hardest day probably. Almost dying in the pack raft and then packing into 2 different spots.
With 5 days of food and gear on our back. Because we thought we were going to pack in there and stay there.
Right.
But we got, 2.5 miles in there And it's hard because, the whole north face is just, 3 feet of snow.
Yeah.
The whole south face is like summer. And then the trail we were on was in the bottom, which oftentimes just had huge snow drifts in it.
Yeah.
So we were just like traversing through there and,
And we didn't even get to the trailhead because the snowbanks were so deep. We had to stop like 3/4 of a mile before the trailhead and walk to the trailhead because of the depth of the snow. So, so that was a long day. So we decided, let's just go back to Luke's house and spend the night here, because we were both just like, that was a wild day. And we got here like 11 o'clock at night or something. So after that pretty long day of e-scouting on Onyx and then going to a couple different spots down in this part of the state, we decided, you know what, we should probably go back to the area that we started in, a couple, 3 or 4 hours away from here, because we saw a bear. And I know the country, because that day, not only did we hit those 2 spots, we also did some more driving around to kind of different trailheads and just looking at what the terrain was like, where the snow level was, and just gauging that. And so we kind of made the decision, let's go back to the original vicinity of where we're going. And I texted some buddies, again, that are much better bear hunters than I, and they kind of confirmed that, like, yeah, this is a decent area, and one of them had even been hunting in there for a while. So we decided to go back, and there's a couple of spots that we didn't check out originally. So we went back, and there was one drainage we were going to drive. It was in that vicinity, but there was a road that would take us to a trailhead a little higher up near the snow line. So like, all right, money, let's do that. So we drive like 4 hours across the state. We get to where we're going to go. The road's closed.
No warning.
No,
maps show it's open. Like,
nothing. So again, back to square one again. So then we scrambled, find a new spot. So and this is much higher. This is in the same area as our first spot, but whereas we started about 4,500 at the beginning of the hunt, now we're up in the 7,500, like at snow line basically. And we drive up to this as far as we can up this road until we get snowed out. And then we decided to hike in, and we hiked in, and then we climbed 1,500 feet of vertical elevation with, I think we had 5 days of gear and food.
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
So that's, that was a gnarly little climb.
Yeah, and our plan was just to be up there and just go all in, basically, be at snowline or a little bit even above.
Yeah.
And glass down. Mm-hmm. From a high vantage point down onto the fresh green areas that are starting to green up, and then from there make a plan of attack. And
there wasn't a whole lot of good options like on the way in. It felt like good terrain, but it was kind of like we had to go all the way to the top to really be able to see. Mm-hmm. And it was one of those climbs where, like, at the end of it, I was like, I don't care what is up there. I just want a camp spot and like something where I can glass. Like, it's just like, I just want to be done.
Yeah.
And so I remember that first night, it was just very relieving of like, okay, we're here. We found a good spot to set up camp. It looked pretty good. Mm-hmm. Not like amazing, but pretty good.
Yeah.
And we could see, it still would have been really tough to kill a bear. I mean, if we had seen one, but anyway, we could glass a lot, and we figured we could kind of run this ridge line and glass down in there. But either way, we were just relieved to be there, and it was a really beautiful spot.
It was
very beautiful. So we were relieved to be in there. So the next day we get up. Our plan is to go down the ridge line and glass a little bit away from camp. And again, of course, we get about 100 yards from camp, and we run into knee-deep plus snow. Knee-deep for Luke, which is like mid-thigh for me. And it was just, it's just demoralizing and hard to walk through that stuff. Mm-hmm. And we did get to our spot. We didn't get as far as we wanted, but we got to a good spot. Glassed that really hard all day. It was hot.
Very hot.
It was very hot.
I think we both got sunburned.
Both got sunburned. And it was just a tough day because we could see a lot of good country, and we did not see any bears or sign of bears. Nothing.
Nada.
Didn't even see any elk or deer or anything.
I think I saw one deer like at 9
like
in the
a
morning.
second.
Yeah, for a split second.
Yeah.
Tried to get some footage of her. She was gone.
Yeah.
And then I was like, dang. And then we saw a lot of chipmunks.
Yeah, I literally was so bored. I spent like 45 minutes at one point trying to get slow-mo shots of chipmunks.
Yeah, that was about the lowest I think we were both at. We were like trading off the camera, like, oh, there's one. Let's film it. Yeah.
At least it was fun though.
Yeah, you gotta do something to keep the spirits up.
Yeah.
On slow afternoons like that.
Yeah, those chipmunks kept me going that 45 minutes, man.
Yeah. Yeah.
So, I mean, we glassed that hard all day, and then we went back to camp, glassed from camp, had dinner. We're just trying to enjoy it, make the most of it. It was a beautiful spot to be. Like, if you're gonna pick just a picturesque place to go, like backcountry camping.
Oh,
it was
can't
good
do much
for that.
better than that. Yeah.
And I mean, it almost felt like we were in Alaska or something. Actually, I remember saying to you, I think it actually was literally like top 2 most epic places I've camped. The other one being East Central Alaska on my first trip. Like, it was a very cool place to camp, but there just weren't really that many animals around. Not much sign, even not much ungulate sign.
No, there's a little bit when we were hiking up to it, but I mean, yeah, we were just hoping that we could glass down from that high vantage point and see them down in like those little meadows and openings in the timber, and in the rock faces. But that second morning, so that like we glassed all day, and then the next day we glassed just from camp because we didn't want to trudge through that snow again.
Yeah,
and from
you
camp.
saw some fresh tracks.
Yeah, so like right in the morning, we started glassing early because we're like, well, maybe the bears are nocturnal right now because of how hot it is, and then moving like right at first light. So we decided to change up that tactic, and then I started just glassing the snow banks up on top of the ridge from camp, and I just noticed some pretty decent sized tracks coming down through the snow that were not there yesterday. And I was like, oh, like that could be, it's definitely something big. And there was no other hunters up there, so I was like, it's not humans. We didn't see any human tracks walking into the spot.
Yeah,
and I was like, maybe it's a bear. Maybe it's a cougar, maybe it's a wolf.
Yeah.
It definitely like looked bigger than a deer.
Yeah.
Maybe an elk. It's hard to say from that far. But I was like, at least there's something in here.
Yeah, there's something living in here.
And then I think you glassed up a couple deer.
Yeah, I glassed and some elk.
Yeah.
So, yeah, just to reiterate what Luke said. So we decided, hey, maybe the bears are more nocturnal. Instead of we had been starting to glass a little later in the morning because, usually bears aren't super crepuscular. But we decided, hey, let's give it like 6:30, glass this hard. So we glassed the first evening we hiked in pretty hard. The second full day, all day, like dark to dark, no, not, full day. And then the second morning, I guess, whatever, third morning, whatever. The next morning, we glassed pretty much all day till about noon. And no bears, no sign of bears. So that's when... So when we were in this part of the state, before we going back to where we were, this is confusing, sorry. We had east scouted a few other areas that looked decent, but we didn't have time to go check out for whatever reason before going back to this more northerly area. So after basically 2 days of glassing and seeing nothing, we're like, all right, well, let's try go across the state again, hit these other couple of areas. So we pack up camp, we do that, we come back to a different part of the state. And I mean, we don't have to go into crazy detail here. We basically just spent the next 2 or 3 days just going from spot to spot and either, we went okay, let me backtrack a little bit. We had a specific spot in mind we really wanted to check out that we thought could be pretty good back in this area. Drove all the way across the state basically, and then we spent the night here, woke up at 5:30, hit the road at like 6 a.m., drove out to this spot. Again, road closed. The whole road had washed out.
Can't make this stuff up.
Yeah.
It was
we
crazy.
were literally hitting roadblocks, both literal and metaphorical, and like every point of this hunt was a roadblock. So, just every conceivable, even down to last night trying to get my footage onto my computer, like my drive wouldn't work. Like,
Yeah.
just every like,
And the road was washed out from all this runoff.
Yeah.
One of the creeks just blew out the road.
yeah, like everything we've tried is just we just hit walls. But some hunts are just like that. So again, now we're scrambling. Where do we go? So we basically just spent the next like 2 days kind of, I wouldn't say completely aimlessly, but almost like semi-randomly just going to different trailheads, hiking in, checking spots, and just not finding anything.
Pretty much, long story short.
I mean, that's without going into crazy detail. Pretty much, yeah. We were just
Saw a lot of pretty places.
saw a lot of pretty places. You know, we saw some cougar sign in one spot, and you know, got to some spots that we were pretty hopeful about. But it was just pretty much where can we get to, and let's hike in. And almost everywhere was either way too hot and too low, or we were just in deep snow, or the road was closed, or we couldn't get there because of water. So we really just did the best we could with what we had on the table. And it was very hard, like, to stay in the game. Like, I wanted to quit so many times. It was just like, this is so dumb. I'm glad I had Luke with me. But anyway, so we were just banging our heads against the wall basically for the last like 2 or 3 days until we had to call it. So that's basically the recap of the hunt. Without going into crazy detail, but I want to get into kind of our major takeaways from the hunt, because that's, since we did not kill a bear, the trophy on this hunt is knowledge and experience gained. I think we both came out of this tougher, probably. You know, I was very blessed this season. I filled 1 or even 2 tags on every hunt I did this season, one of which being with Luke, but you know, sometimes you just have tough hunts, and I'm glad that it happened on this one. But anyway, let's get to the takeaways.
Let's do it.
All right, I got them written down here.
I'm gonna grab my phone. It's in the other room.
So I mean, I'll just wait till Luke gets back.
Actually, my phone was on the arm of the couch.
Yeah, very, very tough hunt mentally to stay in the game. But I learned last night, oh, that's my top takeaway. I'll save that one. No, I'll just start from the top. My number one takeaway from this entire experience, and I kind of already knew this, but I guess I'm very goal-oriented and very much, and it does kind of change the dynamic too when you are trying to make content. But for any like non-resident hunter, when you have like, you know, lots of time, you know, vacation time, lots of money, you have a lot invested in a hunt, not to mention the costs and the tag expense and all that. We all want to be successful. Everyone wants to, you know, kill the animal. But for me, like, I realized, like, I really need to work on, really need to learn how to enjoy a hunt as an experience and not be so wrapped up in trying to kill and so stressed the whole time trying to find animals and killing one. Like, I think I missed out on a lot of the enjoyment of the experience and just the enjoyment of the beautiful places we were in and just kind of the experience, because I was so worried about trying to check that box, fill the tag, whatever it may be. So I really need to work on that, because I was just kind of really stressing about finding animals the whole time.
Totally. And it's a natural thing, I don't know, as a hunter to do, to, like, you know, just to be so, you know, just like, this is the goal, can't quit, can't, like, you know, all these things that you're trying to like micromanage, but at the same time, like, it's a balance, because hunting, in my experience, is like, there's only so much you can control. And the biggest things are like attitude and effort, and that like transcends not only hunting, but like, you know, just life in general. Just like focusing on just the things you can control to the best of your ability, but at the same time surrendering to the reality of, like, you know, we're trying all these new places. We're going, you know, to the snow line. We're going down to the river bottoms. Like, we're trying all these different things, looking for a bear. but it just wasn't working out.
Yeah.
But we just kept after it. We kept going. So that's like something I've learned through a lot of the hunts that I've had that, didn't end up with a punch tag or an animal, but at the same time, it's like there's always something to glean from or to learn from. And, we built character through some of the hard stuff we did. We, strengthened our relationship just as, brothers in Christ and out there and, just the most beautiful creation I've, in some of the areas I've never seen anything like that. It was just gorgeous.
Yeah.
But yeah, there's always positives to take away. But yeah, I'll get into one of my reflections really quick.
Yeah.
Let's see.
Your mic's not like rubbing in your clothes, is it? Okay, no,
No,
it's under there. Okay, cool.
I think it's okay. But yeah, I would say like that's really the biggest thing is like, having that healthy stress of like, yeah, I'm out here, like I want, like this is something I want very bad. And just having that passion, but at the same time being okay with like the reality of it, of, the situation of the hunt or, just not seeing animals and just kind of surrendering to that and be like, you know what, Lord, like, it's okay that like that we left it all on the mountain, didn't come home with a bear. Like it sucks, it's painful, but it's okay because it's part of hunting.
Yeah.
And if you haven't experienced that as a hunter, you will. It doesn't matter if it's a over-the-counter tag, out of state tag, it's tag you've scouted your whole year or life, a once-in-a-lifetime tag. I've seen it happen on every sort of hunt from, like I said, OTC to once-in-a-lifetime. Like it just is a nature of hunting.
Yeah.
But it's at the same time, I think it's also a good thing because it reveals like, I don't just do this to kill.
Yeah.
I don't just do this to be successful. I do this because I love it and I love every aspect of it.
Yeah.
Of the hunt. So
yeah, I needed to be reminded of that, and this hunt definitely reminded me of that. And we were talking about it last night too. It's like it's really about finding the balance because you do need to be goal oriented, and you do need to like keep trying and keep going and all that stuff and put in the max effort, which we did. I think we really tried. I don't think we ever really just like gave up. I think we kept going, kept trying. But at the same time, like so what I'm saying is I don't think that'll ever go away completely, and it probably shouldn't completely go away. But you got to make sure you're in balance of it's not too much. You're not stressing like overly too much. I think I was like overly stressing too much and not enough enjoying the experience. And it's a tough balance to strike, but if you can, still keep your determination and your grit in place, but also enjoy it without getting like lackadaisical. Like you're not just out there like, just like picking flowers and stuff. Like you still are goal oriented, but like you got to find that balance of having the goal and trying hard to succeed, but also enjoying the experience and being surrendered. So you got to, it's tough to strike, but you got to try.
Tough. Oh yeah. And I think it will always be tough.
Yeah.
I feel like if I can just take 1%, and get 1% better after a hunt like this, like that's good.
Yeah.
You've
hunted with a lot of guys. Where do you think I fall on the spectrum of like stressing it too much? Like where do I fall on the spectrum there?
I definitely saw like your stress level get actually less as the hunt went on. I think you're still pretty new to Western hunting, which is totally fine.
Yeah.
But where you're at in terms of, I don't know. Sorry, this is kind of a weird question.
No, it's fine.
I have to edit
Don't worry about like offending me or anything.
No, you're good. I'd say like I saw you in this hunt as the hunt progressed, relinquish some of that stress and some of that like white knuckling of like, let's just, we're not seeing bears here. We got to go to the next spot. I just saw some of that kind of be relinquished. Like you just kind of loosen the grip on the outcome of this hunt and be like, you know what? We're just going to keep trying. We're just going to keep, going back to the maps, going back to the drawing board. Let's try this one. And having kind of more of like a clear mind as the hunt went on. We probably tried 7 or 8 different spots, but like I just saw like in those last 2 or 3 spots, you just had a much more calm presence but still had that same dedication and same, clarity.
Yeah.
An improved clarity, not the same clarity, but an improved clarity, going into that new spot of like, hey, fresh mind, You never know what could happen. Crazier things have happened.
Yeah.
You never know.
Yeah.
So yeah, I saw that as the hunt went on, just basically like you just kind of gave up some of that stress and exchanged that for just a little bit more like calm, even keel demeanor.
That's good.
So that was just something that I don't know, I try and have that, but it's hard because we're human. We and this is something we're very passionate about, and something that we obviously want success in. But that's something I'm trying to learn myself on my hunts, even the hunts I film and the stories that I capture of like, I want this hunt to be just a banger film or a banger, TV episode or whatever. But, at the end of the day, it's surrendering to the reality of like, not every hunt is going to be just like this insane thing I capture on the camera. But at the same time, every story or every hunt is a story that should be told or has a story to be told.
Yeah.
And just kind of relinquishing that stress. That's something I'm personally learning, as a hunt filmer.
Yeah.
I hope that makes sense.
No, it makes great. Yeah. And it's interesting, like, because Luke is an observer by his personality and his profession. And so it's interesting and insightful to hear his thoughts, like observing me as a hunter, because he's hunted with a lot of guys and a lot of really good hunters. So that's interesting. So I'm glad that I at least chilled out a little bit as the week went on. Let's see what else we got here. And that's perfect segue into my next big takeaway was just the importance of a great hunting partner. Luke was a great partner to this trip. Like, he kept me going. There were so many times where I was just mentally done. And like, for example, like hiking into that whatever it was, 15th spot we went to that was up on the top of that mountain at 8,500. Just having him there, it wasn't like, he wasn't like, all right, we're doing this, let's go. But just having him there to be like, yeah, let's go up to the top of this. I might have gone halfway up and been like, I don't know if I can do that. But just having somebody there that was like, yeah, we can do this. And Luke's got like way more just time in the mountains than I have. So, and just mentally, I don't know, just everything about having a friend there, like I said, a brother in Christ, and just someone to help push you and keep your spirits up, like, couldn't have done without you, man. So
likewise, Hunter.
Great it's awesome having a great partner. Because I've been on other hunts where, luckily they weren't this challenging, but I'm with a camera guy. I hate to say camera. I'm with a photographer who's even less experienced than I am, and it's kind of all on me. Luckily, that was, like I said, not anywhere near as challenging of a hunt. But in a tough hunt, like having someone there with you with experience and that's level-headed, cool-headed, is money. So thanks, dude. Let's see. Obviously, strategically, number one takeaway would be I think we left the first spot too early. Going back in retrospect, we did see some bears there. The country was great. Not saying that we wouldn't have ultimately left, but I think I would have given it another day at least.
Yeah. Of
just hard glassing.
We left bears to try and find more bears.
Yeah, we did. That was a big mistake.
And we had some reasons that were, semi-logical of like, if we leave this spot, we can get to a spot that maybe will also have good bears that I've seen in the past, and maybe we'll be a little bit closer to that snow line. So we did have like some points of logic, like for our reasoning, but at the same time, we left bears to
we left bears to find other bears, and I, like I said, going back, I came in a little bit too optimistic about this hunt, maybe, in that like I was expecting to see more bears, so I was like, I wasn't that like impressed by like one sow and cub. Where looking back, I was like, wow, that was dumb. We should have stayed there at least another day. But to me, it's like, oh, we're not seeing a bunch of bears, like 2 or 3 bears at least. This is not a good spot. But I think in retrospect, that was my number one mistake. Was we should have given that at least another solid day of glassing. It was just such a good looking area. So, let's see. Obviously, I underestimated the water and the strength of the water and how crazy the water levels were. Strategically, another hunt, like another takeaway, I would, if I was gonna do this hunt again, I would do it earlier, like in the mid-April, late April time frame. Again, that's just, it's just life and schedules and stuff like that. But if I were to do it again, I kind of like hunting that earlier time frame better. You can hunt a little lower and still be at the snow line. The bears are theoretically coming out of their den. They're not moving quite as much. That's just kind of what I would do. But and just lastly, and then I want to hear some more of your takeaways. And then just lastly is just like, I'm very open about the fact that I'm new. I have a ton to learn. I make lots of rookie mistakes, but that's why this is so rewarding of an endeavor, is because it's just how much of a better hunter it makes you, but even just a better person. And just like, it sounds like almost cliche, but like, and it's amazing that like an activity like this can really make you a better person. And I think hunters will understand that. If non-hunters have a heart, I've had to explain that to not like, they're like, how does hunting make you a better person? And I think those of you listening that are hunters and know this type of experience it resonates. But just the self-analyzation, the learning, the growth physically and mentally, and that's why I love it. Is because I'm thinking last night, I'm like, wow, there's some stuff I really did wrong, stuff I really wish I could change, some stuff I did okay and did pretty good. But that's part of the growth process and really analyzing it, looking at it, and I just had a huge smile on my face thinking of like, wow, I did that. And I was like, I can't wait to go again and try to improve and kind of not make some of the same mistakes. So anyway, so that's kind of my main takeaways. What else you got?
So my takeaways, like I said, one of them is just, maybe the most important one is just like the art of reflecting and just trying to embrace that, especially on a hunt or a life experience that maybe didn't go the way you wanted. That's a pretty powerful moment. Is a really important thing to reflect on. And so I'm going to try and do more of that moving forward, I think, because sometimes just with how fast-paced our modern lives are, it's easy to just be like, oh, well, that sucked, or that didn't go my way, or, oh, I know, I got to get back home. I got this I got to do.
Yeah.
I got this job, or, this.
When you come home, like immediately to like your wife and your house and stuff, I'm kind of lucky for like out of state guys. At the end of every trip, I have like a day of like packing and like flying home, or like at least like sometimes even a day and a half. It allows me that time to reflect that like you might not get coming straight home, and on to the next job. So like out of state guys, when you have that day and a half at the end of a trip of packing and logistics and flying home or driving, whatever, really intentionally use that to break down every step of the hunt and learn from it. So anyway.
Yeah. So yeah, I just would say that's probably my biggest takeaway, is just like putting a little more emphasis on just self-reflection after a hunt, even like a work trip, or, something that pops up, in a marriage or, family situation, not just like, just spend a little more time self-reflecting on some things. And then going back to what you were saying about how hunting makes us better men, better individuals, better humans. A verse that I've been really reflecting on actually recently is Romans 5:3-5. And it says this: not only that, but we rejoice in our sufferings, knowing that suffering produces endurance, and endurance produces character, and character produces hope. And hope does not put us to shame, because God's love has been poured into our hearts through the Holy Spirit who has been given to us. And that's just something that I've been reflecting on the past few weeks, of just like, I think it's interesting that like a lot of people in the industry talk about like purposeful suffering, or purposefully putting ourselves in uncomfortable situations, and like how that can cause us to grow or be strengthened, whether it's like a workout or, just doing something physically hard and choosing to do that on purpose really does help us, I think, grow as individuals.
100%.
And I think it's interesting too that like the Bible and Paul here in Romans talks about, even spiritually choosing certain things, or not even us choosing sometimes, but God just kind of putting it in our path of like, a tough situation that, it has some suffering in it, but that suffering is used to produce endurance and character and
100%.
hope.
That's like the verse for this trip, man.
Yeah, I was going to say that too. I think that perfectly summarizes
That's so good.
this hunt. But yeah, back to reflections. I also have some ones that aren't as deep
Yeah.
or weighty as that.
Yeah.
Like one of them is just bringing a meal for each day that is dry food.
Yes.
That,
Good.
you know, because I had a couple times like on this hunt, I don't know if it was just from all the stress and driving places and trying to like, you know, drum up a bear on our own power and you know, will, that just obviously wasn't happening. But yeah, I just had like some like, my stomach was kind of acting funny and I was like, I don't want to eat another dehydrated meal.
Yeah.
But I had these little bagel and salami and cheese sandwiches that I brought. And I ended up just eating those a lot of times just for like my breakfast or even a lunch. And it was just kind of nice to have like that little breakup of like, oh, not another warm, dehydrated.
Some bread.
Yeah. Some nice, just simple bread.
Yep.
It was bland. And it was just a nice like palate breakup.
I remember several times being like looking through my stuff like wanting something like that and not really having, you know?
Yeah. And I've been on a lot of hunts where guys will bring like a little bagel, cheese and meat sandwich. Like, you know, I've been on hunts with like Chris Neville and Brady and those guys will bring that. And I've always been like, it's like, I kind of want to try that. But I always just resort back to like dehydrated food or, you know, bars and just like things that are simple, you know, fairly cost effective, and they're just tried and true. But I was like, I don't know. We were at the grocery store before this hunt. I was like, I kind of want to do some bagels and salami and cheese.
That was a good call.
Just to try it out. I always like trying at least one thing new out on a hunt, whether that's like a gear thing or a food thing or whatever. It's kind of fun just to try new stuff.
For sure. That's a good one.
So that's one of my main takeaways. My other takeaway, I would say, to kind of going with what you were saying about hunting that earlier 2-week season, that at the start of the season of bear. I've never personally done that. I've always kind of hunted like May, right at the start of June. But I think next year I want to try hunting earlier. Yeah. And playing the game of, you know, not having to guess where the snow line is as much, and just knowing, hey, the snow line's gonna be low. Right. And just going in there with that mindset of and trying to find bears as they're coming out of their dens, or lethargic, is instead of just trying to find them, you know, way high up on the mountain, having to hike crazy far up from the bottom of a trailhead. So I want to try that out next year. And then my last takeaway would just be having multiple backup plans. And not just having like
not just three.
Yeah, not just having like a plan A, plan B, but like having like 4 or 5 in our back pocket that we've already kind of like e-scouted or even like been to, and you know that's and it's hard too because I've only you know, been a resident in this state for 2 years, so my knowledge is still pretty limited too. So I honestly kind of have the mindset of a non-resident hunter of like, I don't really know where to go. I have very limited experience. So anyway, that's kind of those are my
those
main
are good,
takeaways.
Man. Those are good. And I think let me see, I have any more like really like just practical takeaways I wrote down. I think that was pretty much it though. Yeah, that was pretty much it. Yeah, I mean this hunt, like going back to not looking at a hunt as a box to be checked, a tag to be filled. It kind of made me realize that I might have already said this, but I sort of kind of lived my whole life like as one giant checklist, to-do list. And it really hit me last night. I was sitting here kind of watching the sun go down. It's beautiful out here. And I'm like, I'm so focused a lot of times on like, okay, how am I going to edit this episode together? How am I going to do this? What do I need to get done? What do I need to accomplish? Like, sometimes you just need to like be in the moment, like look down at your feet and be like, I'm right here. I'm in this part of Idaho, like this beautiful sunset, these horses, like just, this is beautiful. Like enjoy this moment. I know it sounds so cliche, but just, I'm always so forward thinking on what do I need to accomplish and get done next and stuff. It's really hard for me to like slow down and just be like, I'm in this beautiful spot right now. Just like chill and enjoy it. Mm-hmm. Even if it's just for like 5 minutes, you know what I mean? And so, and even that goes down to like stuff with your kids. Like when I say like I live my whole life, like don't look at, okay, I got to take the kids outside to the playground so I can like check that box and like get them out. You know, it's like go outside and enjoy playing with your kids, not like check off the box of whatever it is. So don't live your life like a giant checklist. I'm trying to work on that. Other weird thing I've realized was last night was the first time I've seen the moon since we've been here, and it was tiny. So I don't know if moon phase played into this hunt at all, and I don't know how moon affects bears versus ungulates. But it's just something to note was that I don't remember ever seeing the moon all week except for last night, and it was a tiny sliver. So I don't know if that, but yep, that's all I got.
Yeah. Thank you, Hunter. Yeah, and seriously, thank you for like encouraging me to reflect on this hunt, because that's something like I said several times in this podcast, like I really want to like do a better job.
Yeah.
At that.
You learn so much, and I think even more from quote unquote unsuccessful hunts. And like last night, just practically talking about how I was doing. I was literally just last night, because you take a 7-day hunt, especially one like this, it's a blur. It is literally a blur. You have to like intentionally be like, all right, what do we do next? Okay, then what did we do? And then what did we do? And then, so I was literally in my mind just chronologically thinking through the entire week and analyzing every kind of decision we made along the way. Was that a right decision? Was that a wrong decision? What could we have done different or better? And making notes of what everything along the way was. And ultimately it came down to, I think we should have stayed in the first spot a little longer, and then everything was kind of like a reaction to that at that point. But anyway, we learned a ton. We had fun. We saw some amazing country. We're coming out of this stronger mentally and physically, I think.
Definitely.
More deeper friends, and just had a great time. And I was so worried, like, we didn't kill anything, but I think this is gonna be actually a really good episode. I think it's gonna be a really good memory, even though like in the moment a lot of this was like really crappy, because we just hit so many roadblocks. I think looking back, it's a good memory, and I think it's just gonna get even better as time goes on, because sometimes sometimes the sufferings, like the quote unquote sufferings, and again, we're just hunting, we're not like really suffering, like we're doing this for fun. But so let's keep it in perspective. But the type 2 fun stuff that's like terrible in the moment is usually the best memories. And when you have a hunt where you have some of those and then you kill, you end up kind of only really focusing in your mind on the kill and kind of scrapping the other stuff. But when you have a whole hunt where it's just all type 2, in the moment it's awful, but I think like it's going to be a really good memory actually.
Oh yeah.
It already is.
Just give it a little bit of time. I mean, even one day post and we're like, oh yeah, that was hilarious. Like we were in here watching some of the videos of the creek crossing, and just
they were like laughing hysterically at me, almost drowning.
Yeah. It's just like having those moments, captured on film or it's just going to be memories that last lifetime.
Yeah, so. Man. Cool, dude. Well, I'm glad I shared it with you. It was great to be out there with you, man. And I love any hunt I can do with you. And so thanks for tagging along on this adventure with me, dude.
Absolutely, Hunter. Thank you for having me. Yeah. Thank you.
All right, guys. Thanks for listening. Hope you guys got something out of this. And be on the lookout for this episode, which will be coming on Sportsman Channel later this year. The show will be launching the last week of June. And the best, probably easiest time to catch it will be at noon Eastern on Saturdays. It'll be running throughout the week, but noon Eastern on Saturdays is probably the easiest time to catch the show. Got a lot of great hunts. One with Luke, a couple mule deer hunts, I'm blanking, an antelope hunt, some great stuff. So look out for the show. I want to thank some of my partners, Onyx Hunt, Loophole, Barnes Bullets, Seekins Precision. Thank you for the support, and we'll see you guys in the next one.